I want you to visualize something. Not a missile, not a battlefield, a factory floor, bright lights, clean rooms, workers in protective gear assembling components smaller than your fingernail. This is where modern war actually begins, because wars today are not won by soldiers alone. They are won by systems, by circuits, by materials so small you never see them on the news. And one material sits at the center of everything: silver. For most people, silver is an investment, a hedge against inflation, a shiny metal locked away in vaults. But for the United States military, silver is something else entirely. It is a requirement. Without it, weapons do not function. Communications fail, guidance systems go dark, and the United States is facing a reality it has not prepared for. The silver is running out. The invisible foundation of military power. When people think of military strength, they think in visible terms: aircraft carriers, stealth bombers, nuclear submarines, missile defense shields. But none of those systems matter if the electronics inside them stop working. Silver is the best electrical conductor known to science. Now, that single property makes it irreplaceable. In military applications, reliability matters more than cost, more than efficiency, more than politics. Silver is used because it does not fail when conditions become extreme: heat, cold, radiation, vibration. This is why silver appears everywhere in defense systems, not as decoration, not as backup, as a core component. Where silver hides in modern weapons. You will never see silver stamped on the side of a weapon. But it is there, inside missile guidance systems that calculate trajectory in real time, inside radar arrays that track dozens of targets simultaneously, inside satellites that relay encrypted commands across continents. Silver-coated wiring reduces resistance. Silver contacts ensure signal clarity. Silver-based batteries deliver instant, reliable power. In combat, milliseconds matter. Silver delivers those milliseconds. A single missile, a hidden dependency. Take a modern precision-guided missile. It travels hundreds of miles, adjusts course mid-flight, resists electronic interference, strikes within meters of its target. That level of precision requires flawless internal communication, which requires silver. Remove it, and the missile becomes inert metal. It doesn't miss, it doesn't malfunction, it simply never launches. Scale is the real problem. One missile is manageable, thousands are not. Modern military doctrine assumes sustained use of precision weapons. Not days, not weeks, months. Every launch consumes silver permanently. There is no recovery, no recycling in the middle of a war. Consumption only moves in one direction: down. The Cold War mentality that once saved America. During the Cold War, this risk was understood. The United States stockpiled materials aggressively, not because they were scarce at the time, but because scarcity during war was inevitable. Silver was treated as strategic. It was locked away, cataloged, protected. The assumption was simple: if war comes, you do not want to depend on markets. When strategy turned into accounting, then priorities shifted. Wars felt distant. Globalization felt permanent. Efficiency replaced resilience. Silver was no longer a strategic asset. It was a line item, so it was sold. Gradually at first, then completely, until the stockpile hit zero. No emergency announcement, no public debate, just gone. 0 ounces, a dangerous number. Today, the United States government holds 0 ounces of strategic silver. Not low, not minimal, 0. At the same time, silver usage per weapon has increased. That is not coincidence, it is technological necessity. The assumption that everything depends on the Pentagon operates on a critical assumption: that silver will always be available on the open market, that mining will continue uninterrupted, that trade routes will remain open, that geopolitical rivals will sell willingly. History suggests otherwise. The market illusion. Markets work in peace, they do not work in war. The idea that silver will always be available assumes stability. It assumes cooperation. It assumes that price is the only obstacle. But in wartime, price becomes irrelevant. What matters is access. And access to silver is already tightening. Most silver is not mined on its own. It is a byproduct. That means production cannot simply be ramped up because demand increases. If copper demand slows, silver production slows. If zinc mines shut down, silver disappears with them. This makes silver uniquely fragile. The supply chain does not respond to military urgency. A supply chain built for consumers, not war. Today, silver flows primarily into civilian industries. Solar panels consume enormous quantities of silver. Electric vehicles require silver for power management systems. Data centers use silver in high reliability switching equipment. These industries are politically protected, economically powerful, and growing. The military is not the only buyer anymore. It is competing, and in a crisis, competition is not guaranteed to be fair. What happens when exports stop? Silver production is geographically concentrated. A handful of countries dominate mining and refining. In a geopolitical conflict, export restrictions are not hypothetical. They are expected. A nation does not need to ban silver exports outright. It can slow permits, delay shipments, prioritize domestic industry. The effect is the same: shortages. And the US has no buffer. The problem with just-in-time warfare. For decades, the US military adopted private sector efficiency models, just-in-time logistics, lean inventories, cost optimization. These systems work beautifully until they don't. They assume predictability. War destroys predictability. A just-in-time system has no tolerance for disruption. Silver shortages would not stop the military overnight. They would erode it slowly. Delays here, shortfalls there, until readiness quietly collapses. Readiness is not a headline number. When people talk about military strength, they focus on budgets, trillions spent, record defense bills, advanced prototypes. But budgets do not fire missiles. Materials do. A fully funded weapons program without silver produces nothing. This is why readiness metrics often hide material risk. You can approve a contract, you can fund a factory, but you cannot conjure silver. The silver drain of modern conflict. Modern conflict consumes electronics at an unprecedented rate. Drones are expendable. Missiles are single use. Sensors are constantly replaced. Every one of these systems contains silver. In Ukraine, the world got a preview. Precision weapons were used faster than they could be replaced. Stockpiles emptied. And that was a regional conflict. Scale that up? Why this was never planned for. The US military planned for enemies. It did not plan for scarcity. The assumption was that technological superiority would offset material constraints, but technology does not remove dependency, it increases it. The more advanced a system becomes, the more sensitive it is to material inputs. Silver is one of those inputs. A weapon system you can't substitute. Copper is cheaper. Aluminum is lighter. Gold resists corrosion. None of them replace silver. In high frequency, high reliability applications, silver is unmatched. That is why it remains essential, and why every attempt to engineer it out has failed. The strategic mistake. Selling the silver stockpile was not framed as a military decision. It was framed as fiscal responsibility, a relic of the past, a metal without relevance. That framing ignored one thing: wars change relevance. Who holds silver now? While the US liquidated, others accumulated. China increased state control over resource flows. Russia emphasized self-sufficiency. Other nations quietly followed. None of them announced it, because strategic materials are not discussed openly. They are acquired silently. The quiet arms race. This is not an arms race of missiles or tanks. It is a material arms race. Who controls inputs? Who controls processing? Who controls reserves? The United States entered this race late, with no stockpile. What a silver shock looks like. A silver shock does not look like a crash. It looks like missed deadlines, canceled deliveries, prioritized contracts. Civilian industry first, defense later. Because civilian systems are politically visible, military shortages are classified. Classification hides failure. Most material shortfalls never reach the public. They are buried in readiness reports, hidden in procurement delays. The public sees strength. Inside the system, fragility grows. The nuclear dimension. Silver is not just in conventional weapons. It plays a role in nuclear command and control systems. Reliability here is non-negotiable, which raises a disturbing question. What happens when replacement components are delayed? War is won before it begins. Wars are not won on the battlefield alone. They are won in warehouses, in mines, in refineries, by decisions made decades earlier. The decision to sell the silver stockpile was one of those decisions. The time horizon problem. This crisis does not explode tomorrow. It unfolds, gradually, relentlessly, until the system cannot respond fast enough. Why this matters now? Geopolitical tension is rising, supply chains are fracturing, and the material foundation of US military power is thinner than it appears. Silver is the clearest example. The final misconception. Silver is not rare, but accessible silver is, and access is what matters in war. The silent vulnerability. America's greatest military advantage has always been production. The ability to build faster than anyone else. Silver undermines that advantage, because production without materials is illusion. The real national security crisis. This is not about price. It is not about markets. It is about planning. And the plan assumed silver would always be there. It isn't. What history will say. History does not judge intentions. It judges outcomes. The United States built the most advanced military in human history, and then failed to secure one of the materials it depends on most. Silver will not make headlines. But it will decide readiness, and readiness decides wars. The industrial reality. Most people never see. Military power is not defined by what exists today. It is defined by what can be replaced tomorrow. A fighter jet lost in combat is not a tragedy if another one rolls off the line. A missile fired is not a problem if another one can be assembled next week. This logic has governed American military planning for generations. But replacement depends on inputs. Factories do not create materials, they transform them. And silver is one of the few materials where transformation is useless without availability. You cannot recycle a missile that has already detonated. You cannot reclaim silver from a drone vaporized in the sky. Every modern conflict permanently destroys silver. That fact alone changes everything. The rate of consumption has changed. In earlier wars, weapons were durable. A tank could last decades. A battleship could serve for generations. Electronics were minimal. Precision was limited. Today, warfare is consumptive. Missiles are designed for one mission. Drones are disposable. Sensors are replaced constantly. Each iteration increases silver dependency. The more advanced the weapon, the more silver it quietly consumes. This is not efficiency, it is fragility. Why mining cannot save this? There is a common belief that high prices solve shortages. They don't. Silver mining cannot scale quickly. Most silver comes as a byproduct of copper, zinc, and lead mining. This means silver production follows other markets. You cannot decide to mine more silver alone. You must mine more of something else. And that takes years. Permits, environmental reviews, capital investment, none of these respond to wartime urgency. The refining bottleneck. Even mined silver is not immediately usable. Military-grade silver requires refining. Purity standards are strict. Processing capacity is limited. Much of this refining capacity exists outside the United States. That introduces another vulnerability. Raw material is useless without processing. Strategic dependence without strategic control. This is the heart of the problem. The United States depends on silver, but it does not control silver. It does not control production. It does not control refining. It does not control stockpiles. Control has been outsourced. In peacetime, outsourcing looks like efficiency. In war, it looks like exposure. The financial blind spot. Financial markets treat silver as a commodity. Military planners treat it as an input. These perspectives collide during crises. When demand spikes, prices move. But military demand is price insensitive. You cannot wait for prices to fall during war. That mismatch creates chaos. Silver in electronic warfare. Electronic warfare systems rely on precision signals, jamming, counter-jamming, signal clarity under interference. Silver plays a critical role here. These systems degrade without high-quality, conductive pathways. That means silver is not just about offense. It is about defense. The space dependency. Satellites are the backbone of modern warfare. Navigation, communication, targeting, early warning. Every satellite contains silver. Once launched, they cannot be repaired easily. Replacement requires manufacturing and silver. Space warfare accelerates consumption even faster. Why this is not a future problem? This is already happening. Defense contractors report delays. Procurement cycles stretch. Component sourcing becomes harder. These are not public failures. They are internal warnings. Why you don't hear generals talk about it? Military leaders do not discuss material shortages openly. Doing so signals vulnerability. Instead, problems are framed as supply challenges or logistical adjustments. The language is calm, the reality is not. The civilian priority. Dilemma. In a crisis, governments face choices. Power grids, hospitals, communications. All require silver. Civilian infrastructure cannot be shut down to feed weapons production. This creates a moral and political constraint the military cannot override. A war of attrition favors stockpiles. In prolonged conflict, the winner is not the most advanced, it is the most prepared. Stockpiles determine staying power. The United States chose liquidity over resilience. That choice now defines the battlefield. The silver paradox. Silver is essential. Yet it is treated as expendable. It is everywhere. Yet nowhere is enough. It is cheap compared to weapons, yet priceless without substitutes. This paradox lulled decision-makers into complacency. A crisis without a countdown. There's no timer on this crisis, no deadline. That makes it more dangerous, because action is always delayed, until action is no longer possible. What would fix this, and why it hasn't happened? Rebuilding a strategic silver reserve would take years. Buying silver moves markets. Refining takes time. Storage requires policy decisions. None of these are politically urgent, until war makes them unavoidable. The uncomfortable truth. This problem cannot be solved quickly. It can only be mitigated early, and early is already behind us. Silver as a measure of real power. True power is invisible. It lives in warehouses, not parades. Silver exposes the gap between perception and reality, between budget and capability, between promise and execution. Wars are not lost because of what you lack on day one. They are lost because of what you cannot replace. On day 100, silver determines replacement. The United States still has unmatched technology, still has unmatched talent. But technology without materials is theory. Silver is the material. And theory does not win wars. History does not repeat, but it rhymes. This is not the first time a great power underestimated materials. History is full of empires that believed strength was permanent. They focused on strategy, on tactics, on enemies, and ignored supply. The British Empire learned this lesson with oil. Germany learned it with rubber and fuel. Japan learned it with steel. The United States is learning it with silver, not because silver is new, but because dependency is new. The difference between weapons and war: weapons are designed, war is sustained. Anyone can build an advanced weapon once. Only prepared nations can build it again, and again, and again. This distinction matters because modern American weapons are masterpieces of engineering, but masterpieces are fragile. They require perfect inputs. Silver is one of those inputs. The technological trap. Technology solved many military problems. It increased precision, reduced manpower, extended reach, but it also concentrated risk. Older systems were crude but resilient. New systems are precise but dependent. Silver is part of that dependency web. Remove it, and complexity collapses. The false comfort of budgets. Defense budgets are often used as proof of readiness. Trillions spent, contracts signed, programs funded. But budgets are promises. Materials are reality. A funded missile program without silver produces nothing. This is why material shortages are more dangerous than budget cuts. They cannot be fixed with legislation. Silver and the speed of modern war. Modern war unfolds faster than supply chains can adapt. Missiles are fired in minutes. Drones are lost in seconds. Satellites can be disabled instantly. Replacement cycles cannot keep pace. Silver shortages would not wait for committees or approvals. They would impose limits immediately. Why allies don't solve this? Some assume allies fill the gap. They don't. Allies have their own militaries, their own stockpiles, their own priorities. In a global conflict, everyone hoards. Exports shrink. Promises weaken. National survival comes first. Alliances are political. Materials are physical. The energy transition collision. The world is undergoing an energy transition. Solar power is expanding rapidly. Electric grids are modernizing. Electrification is accelerating. All of it consumes silver. This means civilian demand is structurally increasing, not temporarily, permanently. The military is entering a bidding war it cannot control. The unseen competition. This is not a competition the public sees. No speeches, no declarations, just contracts signed quietly, shipments redirected silently, inventories adjusted discreetly. By the time shortages are visible, allocation has already happened. Why price is a distraction. Rising silver prices grab attention, but price is not the issue. Availability is. A missile program does not fail because silver is expensive. It fails because silver is unavailable at any price. The long war scenario. Imagine a multi-year conflict. Not decisive, not quick, attritional. Missiles are rationed. Advanced systems are preserved rather than deployed. Commanders hesitate, not because of strategy, because of supply. That hesitation changes outcomes. The silver decision tree. Every military planner faces choices. Use a precision weapon now or save it for later. Deploy advanced systems or reserve them. Train aggressively or conserve stockpiles. Silver scarcity pushes decisions toward conservation. Conservation is the enemy of deterrence. Deterrence depends on belief. Deterrence works when adversaries believe you can sustain force, not just strike once. Sustain. Silver shortages undermine that belief quietly, without announcements, without warnings. The psychological dimension. Material shortages shape behavior. They change doctrine. They influence posture. They alter escalation thresholds. These effects are invisible from the outside, but decisive. Why this is a national security issue. National security is not just about threats. It is about capacity. The capacity to respond, to endure, to recover. Silver constrains all three. The strategic window is closing. Every year without a silver reserve narrows options. Rebuilding stockpiles later costs more, takes longer, faces more competition. Delay compounds risk, the most dangerous word in strategy. Assume. Assume markets will function. Assume suppliers will deliver. Assume peace will last long enough. Assumptions end wars badly. Silver as a litmus test. Silver is not the only material problem, but it is the clearest. It exposes how fragile modern power really is, how dependent it has become on systems beyond its control. The final strategic truth. Wars are not decided by intentions. They are decided by endurance. Endurance is material. Silver determines endurance. The United States does not lack innovation. It does not lack funding. It does not lack experience. What it lacks is margin. Silver used to be margin, a reserve, a buffer, a silent guarantee. That margin is gone, and in war, margins decide outcomes. The question no one wants to ask. Every nation plans for war. Very few plan for replacement. The United States built doctrines around speed, precision, and technological dominance. But those doctrines assume continuity of supply, continuity of trade, continuity of materials. Silver quietly violates all three. Why this problem feels abstract. Silver shortages don't look like empty shelves. They look like paperwork, delayed components, rewritten timelines, temporary sourcing issues that become permanent. By the time the effects reach the battlefield, decisions have already been made, and reverse decisions are the hardest kind. The gap between theory and execution. On paper, the US military is unmatched. In simulations, it overwhelms. In doctrine, it dominates. But execution happens in factories, not war rooms. And factories cannot improvise materials. Strategic depth is not technology. Strategic depth is time. Time to adapt. Time to rebuild. Time to absorb losses. Silver provides time. Stockpiles create breathing room. Without them, every conflict becomes a race. And races favor whoever prepared first. The uncomfortable comparison. Other nations expect disruption. They expect sanctions. They expect shortages. They expect isolation. So they plan accordingly. The United States expected continuity. That expectation shaped every decision that followed, including the decision to sell the silver, when options disappear quietly. No single decision created this vulnerability. It was incremental. A sale here, a budget choice there, an assumption left unchallenged. That is how strategic mistakes are made. Not loudly, silently. The problem with late realization. Recognition does not equal resolution. Knowing there is a problem does not create supply. Even if the US decided today to rebuild a strategic silver reserve, it would take years. It would move markets. It would face global competition. Time is the one resource that cannot be stockpiled retroactively. Silver is a symptom, not an exception. Silver is not unique. It is representative of a broader shift where advanced systems depend on fragile inputs. The more complex the weapon, the narrower the supply chain, complexity amplifies vulnerability. What this means for the future conflicts will not just test weapons. They will test logistics, materials, industrial resilience. Victory will belong to those who planned for scarcity, not abundance. The final misunderstanding. Strength is not what you can build once. Strength is what you can build again after loss. Silver defines that line. A quiet ending. There will be no announcement of a silver crisis, no press conference, no declaration, only subtle changes, adjusted doctrines, constrained usage, careful allocation. And historians will piece it together later. They will note that the most advanced military in history underestimated something ancient. A metal. Last line. Cold, factual. The United States military does not lack power, it lacks margin. And margin is what turns power into endurance. Silver used to be that margin. It isn't anymore.